We are live, everyone. Welcome today to another episode of the Balance and Empathy Show. I am here today with Pamela Brinker and Ashok from Canada. And Pamela, I'll let you introduce yourself in a minute. So, Pamela is an author of an Amazon bestseller, Conscious Bravery. And today we're talking about the topic that she wrote about, and it has to do with caring for someone with addiction. So, Pamela, if you would like to introduce yourself to our audience, that would be amazing.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here. Hello, everybody. I'm Pamela Brinker. I live in Colorado Springs, and I began writing about and teaching about conscious bravery because 11 years ago, my husband died from brain cancer, and my two teenage sons turned to drugs and alcohol to manage their grief and pain. And in my own devastation, I struggled, even though I've been a psychotherapist for over 25 years, and I had lots of tools and practices at the ready and that I taught and everything. I really needed to refine those so that I could manage my own grief and walk alongside my sons in their pain. And they started developing some mental health challenges. And within 3 years, 4 years, they were addicted to methamphetamines. And there were times during that period when I said to myself, I can't do this. And yet I remembered what Cheryl Strayed said. She wrote a couple of books that are pretty well known. One is called Wild, the other one, Tiny Beautiful Things. And in the latter, she says that we parents don't have the luxury of despair. And that really hit me. And somehow grace came to me. And I realized I want to walk alongside my sons in their substance use, help them find other resources, healthier ones. And our whole family basically needed to kind of come together in a new way and restructure. And so I started using the resources and tools and practices I'd come up with in new ways and modified them for myself. Because there wasn't a protocol, Titia or Ashok, about conscious bravery. There wasn't a protocol about bravery. There was no one resource I could turn to that helped me know, what do I do and how do I do this? How do I move forward in love, empathy, and compassion and strength for my sons and for myself? And so I started writing about it myself.
I think that's amazing, and I think you hit a very important point right there. Love and compassion, and also how do you get that balance back in your life, because it can be quite a roller coaster if you have to deal with things like that happening in your life to your loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you maybe explain what is conscious bravery exactly?
Sure. Well, the first word, conscious, to me means that it's more than just what we think about. Consciousness is vibrancy, and it's an embodiment, an awareness of being present in every aspect of our being. And so to me, when we are conscious, we are tapped in to all parts of who we are. And to me, those are 6 realms. They are our thoughts. We are who we are in our thinking, our hearts, our bodies, our essence, or the depth of who we are. We are who we are from our intuition and from the energy in the space around us. And so when we're conscious, we're tapped into all of those realms. And people might say, oh, that's a lot to remember. Those are 6 zones of experience. But whenever we ride a bike or go on a hike or swim or have an authentic connection like we're having now, or have great sex, we are connected to ourselves and we're present and vibrantly awake. We're conscious in all of those realms. And so conscious bravery is an extension of that. It just means taking that conscious awareness and bringing it into every moment of our experience. And to me, we need to be brave all of the time. Every day there are challenges, big challenges, across the continuum, all the way to tremendous devastations. We all face them sooner or later. And so we all need conscious bravery. And that's, to me, what it is.
I think that's a beautiful definition, Pamela. And I often have to explain the subconscious to my clients in my office. And when we have two aspects to one thing, it can get a bit confusing. So if I can gently share my analogy, if we
Please
were in a
do.
boat, if we're in a boat looking at an iceberg, the part of the iceberg that's above the ocean is the conscious. The part of the iceberg that's below the ocean is the subconscious. And what we try to do is to lift that iceberg out of the ocean so we can see the entire iceberg, so we can make more and more conscious. And the interesting thing, the iceberg doesn't get heavier as we lift it, as we explore more consciousness. It becomes lighter so we can see the whole thing. And once we see the entire iceberg, the conscious and the subconscious, we can truly know ourselves and also begin to know others around us.
Love that.
I think that's very well put, Ashok. Just a message to our viewers. I see people typing in where they are watching from, all those beautiful countries we have around this world. So we have people from India, from Nigeria, from Zanzibar even, California, Turkey. Please keep typing where you're watching from, because I just love knowing where all of you are. So in the audience, if you have a question or some concern, maybe you're going through something that has to do with caring for someone with addiction, please put your question in the comments and we will do our best to answer your question. So Pamela, you explained very well what conscious bravery is. And then why do we need conscious bravery in our lives?
Well, as we all know, every day we face, from small challenges to big devastations, there are all kinds of things happening in the world all of the time. And most of us struggle with some anxiety or perhaps some mild depression or have old trauma. And so those things get triggered when new things happen in our daily lives or things happen globally. And we have to have tools and resources to handle things. A lot of people say, well, just rebalance, just take a deep breath, things like that. But that's only temporary. Those are only temporary solutions. We need to cultivate and practice things that help us embed a capacity to respond with conscious presence and to be able to make sense of a situation and know what to do. And we don't just make sense of a situation from our minds, right, everyone? You two know that, Ashok and Titia. We make sense of a situation as a mother, as a father, as a clinician, as a speaker and a host. We make sense of a situation based on our capacity to tap into our experience and the space around us. So we're very aware on every level when we're conscious. And that's how we can handle some of the toughest things that come our way all the time. When we're tapped into our own being and we're tuned into the space around us. In addition, we're tuned into one another. So all you beautiful people watching the show, we're connected. We're one. I'm not isolated from the rest of you. We live on this beautiful blue planet together, and we are connected in a magical, energetic way. Look at that. Yes. We're connected not only to one another, but in a triad sort of way, the way I see it, to something greater, something mysterious. This is an amazing, expanding, infinite universe. So we're connected to ourselves. That's the one part of the triangle, to one another, and to something greater, nature, the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it.
I think that's what you're saying is very powerful, Pamela. So my mind is just kind of filling with amazing ideas. And just to add to what you said, I think that when we have a difficult situation, a common response is to avoid it and want to move away from it, either from a person or the situation, or more importantly, a part of ourselves that can't deal with it. And when we avoid difficult situations, sadly, they often get worse. And we're not showing up for the people that we want to be supportive towards. And so for me, the brave part, and this is why your message is so powerful and beautiful, is the avoidance might actually not be the right situation. You might need to find some, and I think bravery is just the perfect word, to show up, to join in, and to face something that might make you frightened, scared, anxious, depressed, ashamed, right? These are big words. And that's why I think to be consciously brave is such a powerful way of helping us to show up for each other.
Those are all beautiful comments, so important. And to go back to the beginning of what you're saying, no one wants to become addicted to a substance. No one wants to be what the world calls an addict. And I don't even like that word because it's a label. No one wants to have mental health challenges, highs and lows, or have such hopeless feelings that a person wants to take their own life or has panic attacks. And so with deep empathy, we can come into our own experience and learn to handle it and stay with our pain, stay with it and hold opposites. Hold the pain with the compassion, hold the tenderness with the strength.
That's beautifully said, Pamela. And I totally agree. I think no one chooses to become addicted, and I don't like that word either. But I took a little sneak peek in your book through Kindle, and there you also wrote about people really. How do I say that? When you wrote about how you could have full impact by taking care of yourself instead of focusing on your two sons, and that's, I think, is also important to elaborate on, because many times, especially parents, when you support your children or you support your loved one, you tend to want to rescue them and want to prevent all things happening to them. And for me personally, I also learned you cannot save everyone, right? And sometimes you have to let some bad things happen because the person needs to learn how to face them, themselves, and how to deal with those issues themselves. So that really triggered me a little bit. I thought, oh, wow, I recognize this so much. So maybe you can explain why it is so important that we focus on ourselves, because it might seem wrong for some people, but it is key, I think, in coming to a solution.
Absolutely key to the solution. And that's beautifully said. And thank you for reading my book. And yes, self-care is absolutely one of the most crucial components to walking alongside someone who struggles in the wilderness of addiction and mental health. It's akin to putting the oxygen mask on our own face first when the plane is going down.
Right.
It goes against our nature, but it's absolutely essential. And so, all of us love someone who has mental health challenges or substance use issues. It's just probably the truth globally.
Yes.
So when we care about someone who struggles like this, it is so tempting to get caught up in their anxiety or their highs and lows, or, like my sons have actually chosen homelessness at times against my desires and wishes. And so it's just gut wrenching as a parent to watch them homeless and struggling and thin as a rail, and so I had to, and all of us have to learn to not just put the oxygen mask on our own face, but do it daily. Eat well, eat healthy food, take time to pray or meditate, take time to be in nature and rejuvenate and resource, take time to laugh. I think one of the best things that some of my friends tell me, and Ashik has said this, that I'm a pretty joyous person, but it's because I protect my happiness. And I talk about that in the book as well. How can we show the way and be the light for others if we're struggling with anxiety and are morose and, we're down in the dumps? I have to be the light and the strength. And so I want to be a lighthouse, some people call it. I want to be an oasis, is the word I like to say, for my son, so that when they talk with me or we connect, for them, it's like drinking a glass of cool water. And it's like that for me, because then I'm not caught up in their experience or their trials. We really can't be defined by other people's situations or even our own circumstances. Or it is tempting to rescue or enable or manage. I've done plenty of that. I've made lots of mistakes. I learn as I go.
Haven't we all?
Yes. One of the things I
That's life, right?
work hard on doing is to no ace. I don't give advice. I don't criticize. And I don't have expectations. And I'm much more present and accessible to my sons and my friends and colleagues, to anyone, when I operate that way.
And how about judgment? Because I think that I was thinking about this topic in preparation of the show, and I thought, often when someone has broken a leg, there's a cause, you can see what's wrong, right? But with mental illness, that's often so difficult. And then if someone behaves or does things that people don't like, or it's not expected, or people judge so easily because they just don't know what's going on. And then if that's your loved one, if that's your child, how difficult is that to watch other people judging the person you love, and you know what they're going through, but they don't? How do we deal with that? How can we deal with that judgment, or how can we teach others not to judge? Do you have some tips on that?
Absolutely. It's a brilliant question, Titia. Thank you. Mental health still has a lot of stigma attached to it. And for example, my oldest son is diagnosed with schizophrenia presently.
Okay.
The world tends to judge folks with schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Years ago, I learned that judgment does me no good. My sons are both neurodiverse. They both have neurodiverse qualities. They have neurodiverse ways of taking in information in the world, perceiving the world. They're both gifted in different ways. My oldest son is brilliant intellectually. My youngest son is brilliant physically. And it is easy for the world to judge. Like my youngest son can be very impulsive. So he has severe ADHD. Mm-hmm. And I initially didn't know what to do with that when I was first a mom. But over time, I learned with empathy, Ashok, that's what you're all about. With empathy, compassion, and understanding, I could start to walk alongside him and understand his experience more clearly. Same with my oldest son. He has stimuli that come into his world, and he has connection with other levels of awareness. And to me, it's a gift. It's a gift. And if we can view it that way, then we can change the stigma about mental health in this world. If we can see that other people have perceptions that benefit them, that we can learn from. Yes.
If I can just say before you go ahead, Ashok, I just love how you talk about your sons, if I may say that. You describe what they're diagnosed with, and then on the same time you just describe their beautiful qualities. And I think that just shows this beautiful acceptance, And it's okay to be different. It's okay if you're schizophrenic, right? Of course, it can give you problems, but you also have these beautiful gifts that you can share with the world. And I think that's so beautiful. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Ashok, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a point, and I'm very passionate about this, so I don't want to seem angry as I talk about this, but it's been a big mission of mine in medicine for years, especially as a psychiatrist. If someone has schizophrenia, we have the tendency to call them a schizophrenic. If somebody has a broken leg, we don't call them a fracture, right? They're not now a fracture. And so I think that whether it's addictions or mental illness or any really other condition, it's a person with that condition. They're a person who happens to have that affliction. And if I'm working with someone who's addicted to alcohol or drugs, they're a person who has that as a problem that they're coming to see me for. So I treat them as a person first, and their problem as something that is our problem now, because I'm working with them with their problem. I'm sharing that problem with them. And if I empathize with their disease, if I empathize with their illness, I'm missing out this whole other part of that iceberg, which is the rest of the person.
Yeah.
And I can tell you something, people react differently when you treat them like a person.
Yeah.
If you just treat them like an illness, or you treat them like they're a symptom cluster, most people just kind of go into that avoidance mode, or you just don't get them. Yes. So I don't want to seem upset when I talk about this, but it's a big passion of mine to make sure, don't forget the person in the room if they're telling you about a problem they're having.
Absolutely. And if I may jump in, I don't like to even say the word schizophrenic. I like to say that we have schizophrenia, or we have anxiety, or we struggle with panic, because that one thing does not define us.
Yes.
you know? So we are not, even if we have a cold, I'm not all of a sudden a cold, or I just have the flu, or I have COVID. I'm not COVID, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
we want to begin to change the mental health world. And that is everyone's world, with the language we use and the compassion we bring to it, because not all of these things are actually problems. Sometimes they are gifts. Neurodiversity to me is a gift. My oldest son is also a little bit on the autism spectrum. And he is so fun to talk with because he's a deep listener, and he will tell you things. I mean, he's just like a Renaissance man. He has so much information. And so you're right, Titia. I love my son so much that I cannot stay stuck in despair ever, because I really want to help the world see things differently from the experience I've gained.
Beautifully said, Pamela. In your book, or no, one of your blogs, actually, you also write about protecting your happiness, and I think you elaborated on that a little bit earlier too. But yeah, I think it's just beautiful how you stay so positive, where another person might really maybe go into a depression state when they're going through all of this, or a loved one of theirs is going through this. You might just give up hope, like there's no more hope and nothing is getting better. But you really set a great example there. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Could I speak to that a little further, Titia?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't believe in solid positivity, though. I think because I am able to hold opposites, I can be a very positive, buoyant person. But I will tell you that I cry my heart out at least once a month, if not more often. I find that what I have to do is be completely present in the moment and experience the angst or the grief or the despair, and empty from all of it, just empty. I might just sob and wail and hold my body, be aware of my whole being in any given moment. And then I can move through that despair more easily and quickly. But I've worked on my own trauma issues for years. So anyone who's listening, if you have trauma issues, please work with a skilled therapist, because it's really hard to work through trauma on your own unless you have a partner. And I've had several amazing therapists, but two of them are very, very skilled at an emptiness practice like what I'm describing. And that's longer than we can go into on this show. But thank you for letting me wander into that, because I think I'm able to be authentic and real because I can feel it all and I can hold it. That's the capacity that, Ashok, you were talking about earlier. We want to be able to not run from our pain.
Yes.
Not just run into happiness as if we can be like in a hovercraft and just hover above the pain in our lives. I tap down in it completely, both ends of the spectrum and everything in between.
Yes, but I think that's, again, if you don't do that, then you're running away, from the problem, and then the pain is still there. You have to, you cannot be happy all the time. We're humans. We have these emotions that we need to deal with. That actually goes right into the next question that I have, that I would love for you to talk about a little bit more. You also wrote about trust the process. And I think that can be, if anyone's listening, that can be difficult if you're going through these highs and lows, in this process. But trusting the process is important, because I think in the end, it will be okay. Depends on where on the journey you are, right? But maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
That's really well said, that it will be okay eventually.
Yes.
Most of us, everyone listening, you've been through tremendous things. You've been through harrowing adversity. I'll bet almost everyone listening has been through something that's tragic. If you haven't lost someone you love yet, you will. And if you haven't had a devastation physically from a health issue or something, an accident, you will. And so we have to prepare for these things. And part of how we do that is turning to something greater. And so when I write about trusting the process, it's a lot about participating in the flow of life. We're right here in it. I'm present. I'm saying, hey, I've been through really, really tough stuff before. we'll get through this. And I often say that, we'll get through this, meaning
Yes.
not just me, but I ask for help from friends and colleagues. I used to not do that. I used to be very isolated and think I had to do this on my own and be a super mom. And then I learned that when I tap into who I truly am, I'm more than just a mother or a clinician. I'm more than a psychotherapist. I'm more than an elite athlete. I'm more than a musician. I am this essence. Who we are truly is at the very core of our being, and it's never changing. We are our essence. It's like our soul, call it a soul, call it a self. I prefer the elegant word essence. So when we tap into our essence, we can remember who we truly are. And then it's easier to trust whatever's happening and go with the flow, roll with it, because we remember, hey, I've been through tough stuff before.
Yeah.
And I will be able to get through this. In addition to tuning into our essence, though, and turning to one another, and I mentioned this earlier, part of how we trust the process, Titia, is we turn to something greater. And a lot of people in 12-step call it a higher power. I like to call it the divine beloved. You can call it whatever you want. Nature, something greater than ourselves is always accessible to us. And this beautiful universe supports that. And so it's hard not to go out in nature, and it's hard not to go out in nature and not say, oh my gosh, what an amazing, beautiful day. Even if something harrowing has just occurred, it's hard if you're hearing birds sing or looking at trees bending in the wind. It's hard not to say, oh wow, there's beauty. There's beauty this moment.
That's so beautifully said, and I often say, even to my kids, like, the most beautiful things in life are free. Look around you, just take a glimpse, let the sun set, or the birds or the trees or the flowers, and it's completely free. And the strength and the love, you find it from within yourself, and no one can take that from you, not even if they tried.
Yes.
So
just to add to the conversation, a lot of human experiences are actually normal. And I do a lot of grief counseling in the office, and a lot of people ask me, is this normal for me to be feeling grief, or if we're going through the stages of grief? And to a certain degree, a lot of human experience has been somewhat pathologized. Grief is normal. Pregnancy and delivery is normal, even though they typically happen in hospitals. They're not diseases. They're human experiences. And I think it is up to us when we are counseling people or just sharing people or showing up for people we care about, visiting someone in the hospital who's just been diagnosed with a bad illness. We have to be in touch with who we are to be able to show up for that person. And that's normal. Human beings used to live in small tribes, and we used to help each other out with all kinds of stuff. Now we live in these large anonymous cultures, and we're all strangers until we get on a beach and start hanging out, right, Pamela? That's when it matters, when we start to show up and really spend that quality moment with each other. Even if it's a sad moment, that can feel softer and kinder and more heartfelt if you share that with somebody else.
I'm so grateful that you're normalizing human experience, Ashok, because every part of human experience is just that. It is our human experience. And that includes pain and suffering. And we're not going to be able to avoid it. We're not going to be able to avoid death. I always kind of crack up when people say, if I die, right? Because we're all going to pass from this into some other experience. And so why not normalize what happens to us? We're all going to lose someone, or like you said, end up with a broken leg or an ulcer or something, but how we get through it has to do with our perspective. And that's where, to me, conscious bravery comes in.
Beautifully said. So we have a question from the audience. Maybe Ashok, you would like to comment on that if you like, from Femi. He says, what is the relationship between self-consciousness and self-discipline?
Well, Femi, that's a beautiful question. And self-consciousness is being aware of ourselves. And self-discipline has something to do with willpower. When we talk about willpower, people often say to me, I don't have any willpower. I say, well, that's because you're not aware of your self-consciousness. the more conscious you are of yourself, the more you can empower yourself. And Pamela, I'm itching to hear what you say about this. The more you can inform your willpower. And these things are about being able to look at yourself in the present, but also to imagine yourself in that future. Where do you want to be? Where were you aiming yourself towards? What is your goal with that intention? And when you inform yourself with that, that's where your willpower comes from, through your consciousness, can become self-discipline. Pamela, please add to this.
Oh, I love what you just said. I guess I would add that something that I teach and practice a lot myself is to become comfortable with discomfort. And to me, that addresses this question. And it takes practice to do this. We practice in the easier moments so that we can do it in the devastating times. But we say, okay, wow, I'm aware, I'm self-aware this moment, and I'm uncomfortable. I'm feeling disruption or agitation or frustration all along the continuum up to maybe I'm escalating, right? So we have that awareness, whether it be anger or grief or anxiety. We can use kind of a way of understanding our experience on a continuum. And then we can say, okay, wow, I'm escalating, and I'm absolutely starting to loop in my head with my mind. My thoughts are just repeating over and over, and I'm just overwhelmed. And so then we can be aware of that and come into our whole being, come into our bodies, our hearts with tender empathy and compassion. We can move into our essence and breathe into the deepest core part of ourselves. We can say, okay, here it is. Oh, this moment, it's so uncomfortable. Oh, there I am with you, dear one. You know, I like to call myself nice names instead of harsh names. So I'll say dear one to myself. I was almost going to hold back and not share that, but why not, right? So I'll say, here I am, dear one. And I'll come into my essence. And all of a sudden, I'm walking myself down on that continuum to a place of greater calm and ease. And again, I can then hold opposites. I might still be agitated or fearful about the future, but I'm able to bring some calm to it. And so that kind of consciousness, I hope, addresses this question. Additionally, I practice and teach that we want to view fear as an advisor instead of an enemy. You know, we're all going to feel a little bit scared all the way upwards to full on afraid or paranoid, you know, even at times. And so we want to be able to have empathy and view fear as a voice that is cautionary but helpful. You know, really only people who are a little bit off, when we're a little bit off, are we not listening to fear as a wise warning. So fear can give us counsel if we take a different view of it.
That's beautifully said, Pamela. So I have another question. There are many books written, right, about mental health care and how to deal with that. In your book, it says it promotes a new perspective for all who care to make a difference. So I would love for you to tell us about some new ways of thinking and tools, how to survive and thrive in these kinds of situations.
Sure. Well, one of the things that comes to mind is to teach you how to do the whole being scan. Since I mentioned our whole being and whole being awareness, I am a big proponent of moving past the word we've been using for years and years that is called mindfulness. I think mindfulness, it has been a really helpful tool, but it keeps us stuck in the mind. And even the word conjures the mind immediately, right? But when we're actually present, we're tapped into so much more than our minds, or even our minds and our hearts. So with a whole being, and we can practice this right now super fast, and then anyone can use it anytime you want. You basically tap into your mind, your heart, your body, your essence, your intuition, and listen to what your intuition is saying, and you tune into the space around you, the energetic space. And I like to use 3 words for each realm of experience, but let's just use one so that we can be quick. So first I'll tap into my mind. Right now I'm focused. How about you, Ashok? What's happening in your mind right now? If you could use one word.
Whole.
Whole. How about you, Titia?
Focused.
Sweet. Okay, now let's go into our hearts. And always, we can know that we always experience multiple things at one time. So choosing one word can be difficult, but we might be feeling happy, interested, and very sad all at the same time, right? But at any rate, right now, I'm feeling emotionally, I like to close my eyes to help me tune in. I'm feeling energized. How about the two of you?
Oh, for me too.
Nice. Okay, so now let's tune into our bodies. And our bodies are amazing databases for all kinds of information. You might be feeling tightness in your neck, or your heart might be beating fast, or your feet might be bouncing up and down, right? So I'm just going to tune into one aspect of my body. And I would say that I'm feeling warmth. How about the two of you?
Calm.
I'm feeling really relaxed right now because I have to go on a bike ride later on, so I have to get going.
And I hope the listeners are doing this too, tapping in. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I said to Ashok, aren't we in line today?
Oh, nice. Great. So now we'll go into our deepest core self, the part of us that I call our essence. In my essence, I'm feeling completely supported. How about either of you?
I feel the same.
I'm feeling what I always feel, and that is empathy.
Oh, nice. Okay, now let's go to our intuition, which is another amazing resource that pulls together all the information from all these other realms. In my intuition, I'm feeling trust. I'm feeling trust for the two of you and trust with everyone that is with us today. How about you guys?
I think I'd have to really tune in, right? Like sit and really tune in.
I'm feeling curiosity because that's what empathy always feels.
Nice.
You just want to know more and more and more. There's so many questions to ask.
And so lastly, because our bodies don't actually end with our skin, neuroscience is teaching us that who we are extends into the realm just outside of us, into the space or energy around us. So I'm tapping into the energy around me, and I'm feeling this vibrancy. So that's the word I'd use. How about either of you?
I call it buzzing. And I always know that I'm onto something when I'm buzzing. So when you and I were doing videos on the beach, I was buzzing.
Nice. And I should clarify. So Ashok and I did a workcation.
A workation
In Mexico, whereby we did some work together, made some videos. We were with our spouses, but we were down in Mexico, and it was really a wonderful connecting time. Amazing. Anyway, how about you? What's happening in the space around you, Titia?
I would say tingling.
Nice. So now you put all that together and you have this awareness. That's the whole being scan. And we can do that. I've learned to do that in 1 minute flat or less.
Wow.
And we can just tap it because you use this whole being awareness anytime, again, like I said earlier, when you're riding a bike, swimming, walking, talking, having a connection with a colleague, teaching a workshop.
That's amazing. Well, the audience is loving this. So Tesfa is saying robustness in spiritual engagements provides human kingdom peace and happiness. How beautiful is that?
That's lovely. Yes, true. Absolutely true.
And a lot of what you were saying, I was thinking it has a lot to do with our chakras.
Yes.
So is that something that you recommend that we also practice in achieving that peace and calmness and happiness?
Absolutely, Titia. I'm glad you asked about that. And you said achieving in a way that almost brought the word chi to mind for me, which is that energetic space around us and is accessed when we're aware of all of the points on our chakral system. So yes, I'm a yogi, and I'm a big proponent for anyone watching of doing your own form of meditation, finding your own source for pranayama or conscious breathing, and then learning about the chakral system, all the way from the root chakra, all the way to our crown chakra, and how we connect to whatever's greater. But we have to be anchored and rooted in our own being through the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and the solar plexus chakra, which is a lot about who we are. And when we're anchored from those three zones, it's easier for us to access and respond with conscious bravery as the situation might call for from some of the higher realms. Do you want to add to that yourself, Titia? You obviously know a lot about the chakral system too.
Well, I don't know a lot about it, but I do started practicing this recently, and what I found was that it really helps me to tap into that higher energy, and also it helps me to protect my energy circle, so to speak. Because we have these daily influences, right? It can be from people around you. Someone is going through something, and that can influence. I'm quite sensitive that way. I feel that, right? So that can influence my energy too. So I started reading about that, and then I learned about cleaning your chakras and really protecting your aura, your energy circle. And I tried it. And first, you start with grounding, what you talked about. And I find it really helps. It helps me in conversations with people. It helps me even when I have some difficult conversation planned or something. It helps me to be more relaxed, and that somehow reflects on the person I'm speaking to, you know?
Absolutely.
And I found that fascinating. And hearing you talk about this, I thought, oh, that sounds familiar.
Oh, if you ever come to my home, you'll see that I have a sculpture. Her name is Shakti in our backyard that a sculptor friend of mine created. And she's doing dancer pose, and she's holding all the chakras in her hands, and it's beautiful. And so I also teach a practice called Earth and Sky, whereby we ground into the earth and find the source of energy within ourselves, but even through our feet going down into the center of the earth. So if you want to just stand wherever you are, anyone, you ground into the earth with both of your hands reaching down. And then you go up through the chakral system with your hands and reach up to the sky. So earth and sky, and you're connecting through your crown chakra to what's greater.
Yeah.
You can do that anytime. It takes 5 seconds, earth and sky, to reground, because we can't stay balanced all the time, you know? I mean, whoever thinks that, it's just not possible. Yeah. So we want to rebalance. We want to notice when we're off balance, right? You two know this. Yes. And then rebalance. And we can do that through the chakral system. We can do it through the whole being scan. We can do it through conscious breathing, various methods. We want to have a lot of tools at the ready, because no one tool or resource or practice works in all moments. And that's how life is. There's so much varied suffering that we encounter. We want to be able to have the innate capacity emerge in us to be consciously brave as needed. And that means having a bunch of different tools and resources at the ready.
No, I totally agree. And I think it also, you have to keep practicing this, right? If you really want to have, because if you do that, it has an effect, but then like in a couple of hours. So during the day, there are all these exercises you can do. So are these kinds of things in your book too?
Yes, thank you. Oh. Yes, there's a chapter called Whole Being Awareness in the book. And there's a chapter on self-care, as you were talking about earlier, which I call Be a Tall Tree. Everybody loves the tree of life. So when we are a tall tree, we're resourcing from our roots through our trunk, up through our branches, and doing various things that help us with our self-care. Let's see, what was your question again?
If these kinds of tools are described in your book.
Yes, thank you. And there's a chapter called Befriending Our Feelings, because most of us have feelings we're pretty comfortable with. You know, we might even be comfortable with depression, and we might be very comfortable with contentment, but we might not be comfortable with shame. We might not be very comfortable with despair. And so we want to see all feelings in a new way and realize that all feelings come to us in our own service and can be tended to, just like we would tend to a 5-year-old child. We wouldn't say, hey, get it together. Stop feeling that way. We would say, oh, you know, they're there. Come and sit next to me. And we hold space for them. We want to do the same thing with our own feelings. So that's another tool and resource in the book, how to become how to make friends with all of our feelings, how to become comfortable with discomfort. Yes, Ashok.
No, I just, you mentioned if you could show us something by like a breathing exercise. I think if that's okay with you guys. Could you spend a few moments just taking our audience through that? Because that would be something we could really get right now, here and now. And I think that would be powerful.
Let's do it. Thank you for asking. And yes, this is something that Ashik's talking about, a tool that is called conscious breathing that we can practice right now and we can take with us wherever we go every single day. So let's just first ground down and arrive here, arrive fully present wherever you are in this moment. This is your space. This is what's happening. And instead of just taking 3 deep breaths, which anyone can do, we're going to take conscious breaths. And so I'll preemptively say that we'll breathe in fully and completely to all of those zones of our experience that we talked about earlier. And it may seem like a lot, but just see where your body, your being goes. You might pay more attention to your heart. You might pay more attention to your body. You might be breathing into, your mind and just kind of calming that. So just let your whole being awareness set in this moment. You're aware of heart, body, essence, mind, intuition, and energy, right? So let's breathe together, taking in a slow, deep breath into all of your being, and then exhaling from your whole being. And there are no expectations. There's no judgment. Just notice what's happening. So breathe in again to your whole self, your whole being. And let a big exhale be released from all of who you are. And breathing in again at your own pace, come into awareness of your experience. And release that on the exhale without any judgment. And let's do it one more time with deep compassion and empathy. Breathe in. And with kindness and strength, exhale. Beautiful. What did you notice?
I noticed that it helps to let tension go, let bad energies go, get good energy in, and let bad energy go. And then you feel more peace and more relaxed.
Nice.
What I noticed is that sometimes when it's snowing, I look out and I see snow. Sometimes I try and focus on one snowflake, especially if it's those big snowflakes, and just watch it wander around in the sky until it falls to the ground. So it helps with the focus.
Mm. Did you feel more focused just then? Did you have all that stimuli coming into your mind?
I felt more focused because you were definitely causing my mind to be more focused, but in a calm, soft way, right? There's sympathetic focus and parasympathetic focus. So it was more of a softer focus.
You got it. And I haven't written my second book, but I've begun, and there's a chapter in it called Meditate for Bravery. And I utilize conscious breathing for not just this kind of calm, but to get ready for action. So you can use conscious breathing to calm yourself down, as you're talking about, using the parasympathetic nervous system for calm. But sometimes we need to activate, and we need that sympathetic charge to get ready for whatever's next. And so with this kind of conscious breathing, we can hold both those systems together.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Pamela, for coming on the show today and teaching us about conscious bravery. I think it is always so helpful to get new tools and tips on how to deal with, mental illnesses and how we can help each other, how we can help people. I especially loved, again, how you talked about your sons and their beautiful gifts, and how you had no judgment, but you were full of acceptance. And I think a big takeaway from me today was that if we are more accepting of each other, also of people who suffer from mental illnesses, who struggle with addiction, we can create so much more love and compassion and empathy together, because I think we are all significant. Every being is significant. So thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. You're just a treasure. And this is a beautiful gift to be able to talk about this message of conscious bravery.
Thank you so much. So for the audience, I will have Pamela's links to her website, to her book, and to her profile in the comments. And if you want to reach out to Pamela, then you know how to. So thank you again for today. And well, I'm looking forward to another show in a couple of weeks. See you then, and thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.